Hello chaps and chapettes, and welcome to a little history on, well, one of the, let us call it an ugly duckling. The Kochyerigin DI-6 fighter. Yes, fighter. Plane was developed by Sergei Alexandrikov Kochyerigin, who survived the First World War and the revolutions as a fighter pilot in his early years. He went on to become a designer of aircraft, working out of the Polakabov Design Bureau in the early years. He was actually the vice president, sort of just like second in command there, effectively. He then went on to the TSKB, the Central Construction Bureau, in the late 20s, early 30s. Although he would design a fair few planes, the most successful, a few quotation marks around that one, would be the DI-6. Having started design on the plane in the early 1930s, the DI-6 was envisioned as a high-speed, dual-purpose fighter, being capable of attacking the enemy and engaging them into a turn fight situation, which would allow the tail gunner to shoot the enemy when engaged. They also thought it would be useful to have the tail gunner to defend against faster, less agile monoplanes at the time. The plane was developed as a biplane, of course. Originally, the DI was going to have a liquid-cooled V12. As we know in history, the Soviet V12 that was always coming never came. Unsurprisingly, issues with development of that engine led to them using the old reliable, the Wright R1820 F3, the old Cyclone radial engine. The plane was designed so the pilot was in the open cockpit position. However, the tail gunner had an enclosed canopy. It was partially enclosed, allowing him some form of comfort in his very, very small cabin. However, there was a trial version with a fully enclosed pilot and gunner cockpit and canopy, named the DI-62, I believe, which was tested in the winter months with a fixed ski landing gear setup. One major feature of the plane was the fact it had a retractable landing gear system. This gave the plane a huge speed advantage over most of the other Russian biplanes of the day, which often had a fixed undercarriage. In 1934, the plane took to the skies for the first time. The reports state a number of issues, the worst being bad vibrations, very bad field of view for the pilot, and a pretty bad arc of fire for the tail gunner. Although there were some positives, amazingly the plane reportedly had good manoeuvrability and was very easy to fly, along with having good acceleration and top speed thanks to that lack of a draggy undercarriage. In the end, the plane was capable of around 500 kilometres in range, a top speed of around 370 kilometres per hour, and capable of getting to about 5,000 metres in about 10 minutes, so not too bad in all honesty, for the time that is. The plane had 3 SHKAS 7.62mm machine guns fitted, 2 forward mounted under the lower wing and 1 aft with the tail gunner. Had a capability of carrying up to 40 kilograms of bombs, although later modifications could carry up to about 80 kilograms of bombs, with hardpoints being under the wing and a modified version having hardpoints under to the fuselage. There was also a version which had a couple of extra machine guns strapped to it as well, but this was in the latter stages of its life when it was being field modified, so there were plenty of modifications which just who knows what happened to it. It probably had, 75mm cannon strapped to it at some stage as well, being a Soviet era field modified plane. 222 were produced from 1937 to the winter of 1939. The plane first saw action in the summer of 1939 during the Kalgar conflict. One air regiment was equipped with the new shiny DI-6s, flew into battle against the Japanese, although reports of this conflict and use of this aircraft are a bit spotty. At best, most reports say the plane did see action. It's just a little bit tricky around this time. The majority of reports, though, do state that the plane saw action against the Nakajima Ki-27 and promptly got slaughtered. The faster Japanese monoplane was capable of outflying the biplane, and despite the DI-6's much better turning rate, the Ki-27 was quite nimble in itself, and the fact it had the speed advantage as well as a very good turning rate just meant the Russian plane was easy to pick off. Although there were some reports of the DI-6 being used in the Winter War as well against the Finnish, it had a similar outcome. It was almost instant that the plane was put into the Sturmovik role, which, if you don't know, Sturmovik is just Russian for ground pounding. It's that's it. It's just a general term for ground attacker. Where it lasted another year until being mothballed by 1940. Yeah, a Soviet plane got mothballed. They had planes in reserve and they mothballed them. That's how bad it was. When Soviets are mothballing their planes, you know how bad it is, because they were chucking anything they could against the Germans in 40, 41, 42. You know, it was, you know, chuck anything we've got at them, and they weren't even using these planes. I think that's a damning statement of how bad this thing was. A replica survives in Moscow to this day, to remind people to never make such a bad mistake again, to never make this plane again. So that is the DI-6, a interesting little plane. Not a huge amount of information, unfortunately, on this one. I've had to sort of comb through a fair few different things, but it is a fairly unique plane. It's kind of like the bastard offspring of the Bolton Paul Defiant and a Gladiator. It's got both of those planes mushed into one, with none of the advantages and all of the disadvantages. It is an interesting plane, at least, and that's one thing to say about it. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, please leave a comment and hit that like button, because it does help with the algorithm. And thank you as well for keeping with me. I'm sorry I haven't been able to make some videos recently. I've been suffering from a rather bad injury, but I won't get into detail on that one now. But thank you ever so much, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.